My name is Ludwig Göransson, and I'm the composer on Mandalorian. I had about a month, and I just set up my studio with a bunch of different instruments. I had guitars, a bunch of different guitars, piano, a lot of 70s synthesizers, drum kit, Rhodes, a bunch of synth guitars. I just started thinking about a lot about kind of going back to how I remember Star Wars and the impact it had with me as a little kid, and how I can recreate that feeling. I remember the first time I heard Darth Vader theme. I was in Sweden, because that's where I grew up. The orchestra from my city played it in their concert program. To me, orchestra music was something different, and I remember them starting playing that piece, and it just felt like something I haven't felt before. I got a call that Jon Favreau wanted to meet me, and I step into his office, and on all the walls, there's just surrounded by visual art from the show. They were still in pre-production, so they hadn't shot anything yet. And I didn't really know what it was about, but my jaw dropped, and John came over to me and he was like, hey, let me tell you about this character. And we kind of went over each episode and like each character and all the planets. And it was just mind-blowing from the get-go. And we're talking about samurai movies a lot, and Kurosawa's movies and Western. And he told me that this character is a lone wolf, kind of like a gunslinger. And it became obvious kind of from the start that John really wanted to go with something different and wanted to experiment and try out new ideas. It's really important that every project I do has a unique sound image and sound world. I really like to get involved very early in the process, even before they start shooting. And I like to read the script and just start thinking about how we can create a new sound world together, me and the director. You can take sounds that are sometimes not even musical elements. John and I worked with sounds from his boots and sounds from that the sound effects guys are working with. And we're taking in that into the score and manipulating it and making it a musical element. On Creed, for example, I went into the boxing gym for 2 days and recorded the boxer just in the punching bag and the jump ropes and created like beats out of that. For Black Panther, we went to Senegal for a month and worked with some incredible musicians over there. And Fruitvale Station, I recorded the BART train sound and made that into like musical elements.
Next stop, Fruitvale Station.
I bought a set of recorders that everyone played when they were a kid, because I know I wanted to take a step away from the computers. That's kind of the way I used to write music when I was a kid. I was just alone in my studio with all these instruments. So I wanted to recreate that feeling. It was kind of a little meditative because I was alone, away from my screens and my computers. And I remember just sitting hours with this instrument and just playing. Just like I could be connected with my inner child a little bit. I'm not a master at this instrument, so something that came about in the very beginning was just this. I didn't really think this was going to work because it was like, this is so simple. In my head, when I'm thinking about writing music for Star Wars, I set the bar very high, and like the music needs to be advanced and, you know, clever. And from the get-go, I was like, well, this is too simple. But the more I listened to it, I played it over and over again. And then starting off with the flute, that gave me inspired to go over to the drums and play this drum rhythm. That made me inspired to go to the piano, play the piano. So a whole song came out of just this idea. The next thing I did was just to add like a little drum. I actually played this very drum, this right here. Added this drum tom rhythm to it, almost like you're walking or traveling, or maybe you're on a horse. One of the most basic primal drums and patterns that I could come up with in like a couple of seconds. And then you have a dramatic piano that goes with it. It goes like this. I was like inspired, and I just wanted to be able to move in a close distance. So I was like grabbing things, and like when you're in that mode where you don't know where time is, so you don't know where space is, you just want things that are close. And this was right here. So It sounds cool though. A little out of tune. I actually played these just a little thing on the acoustic guitar, like a little intro. And then I played the melody. Kind of goes like this. What was interesting was just like hearing these kind of instruments on top of each other. What was speaking to me at the time was just like a combination of these sounds together. It's a mellotron, so a lot of these sounds are actually coming from tape. In the second verse, you really have the strings coming alive and the horn melodies coming in here, doubling the guitar. So we recorded this with a 70-piece orchestra in LA. You need to have 70 humans in a room playing their instruments together to create the waves and the air to make it feel human and make it come alive. I know I wanted to have that sound in the show as well and kind of embody the soul of Star Wars and also paying my, homage to the traditional Star Wars sound. After the second verse comes the pre-chorus. When I played all the instruments, when I was locked into the studio for a month, the pre-chorus sounded just like this. It was just kind of these kind of old Moog synthesizers, so the way that they sounded just kind of reminds you a little sci-fi. But when you put it in the woodwinds, it doesn't sound as sci-fi anymore. So the fanfare is kind of the spot where it became kind of like the theme for the Razor Crest. Every time you kind of see Mando flying in the Razor Crest, you have the fanfare coming in. I would say that's my homage a little to Star Wars and to like the brass and orchestra sound of John Williams. I played the last little piece on these 70s Rhodes. It's like also like bell-like and childlike a little bit, but it also has kind of a mystery to it. And it feels old and new. That's what I was trying to achieve when I locked myself into the studio for a month, to be guided by the instruments and something that you can touch. Like when you play a piano, when you play a recorder and a guitar, it resonates, it gives something back to you. Your fingers, you can feel it in your body. When you sit by the computer, you give all this information, but you don't get anything back. It's almost like solving a puzzle. You're taking one piece that leads you to another piece. It becomes a kind of a maze or a puzzle, if you may call it that.